Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 147 based on novel. So let's start. The sharp voice spread within the enormous main hall, causing the expressions of quite a number of experts to change slightly. They could sense the unusually powerful strength of the owner of this voice. While everyone was surprised, a rushing wind sound suddenly appeared within the large hall. Immediately, the black fog surged over from outside the hall in all directions. Finally, it gathered in the midair of the large hall. The black fog scattered and a couple of figures appeared. That unique appearance method immediately caused quite a number of people to recognize them. They are actually members of the Hall of Soul. The hearts of quite a number of people pounded upon seeing the status of those who had arrived. They frowned slightly. Everyone on the continent were aware of the strength of the Hall of Soul. If they wanted to snatch the Tien Class Do skill, it would undoubtedly cause the originally chaotic situation to become even more complicated. Xiao Yang's eyes stared at the midair. The cold smile on his face became increasingly dense. A grey-white clothed old man with a dark and cold smile on his shriveled face stood in the air in front of the couple of figures. That appearance was surprisingly that of old ghost Jiaxing, who had fought with Xiao Yang until both of them were seriously injured. Are his injuries completely healed? Xiao Yang glanced at old ghost Jiaxing immediately. His eyes paused on the right hand of the latter. However, he could only see an empty sleeve. His brows twitched. It seemed that even though this old demon had managed to keep his life under the Annihilation Fire Lotus, he had also paid quite a great price. This old ghost Jiaxing has currently become a single-arm old ghost. Little fairy doctor laughed. There was some gloating feeling within her laughter. Old ghost Jiaxing overlooked the entire place from the midair. He laughed in a strange manner. TSK, how lively. It is unexpected that this remains had actually attracted so many people. If we were to wait here and capture souls, we will likely manage to gain quite a lot. Quite a number of people revealed some dislike within their eyes because of this sentence of this old ghost. The Hall of Soul capturing souls from all over the place was no longer some rare thing on the Central Plains. This act was naturally despised by quite a number of people. However, due to the frightening strength of the Hall of Soul, no one dared to oppose them. Why is one of this old ghost's arm gone? The large hall did not lack some experts who had seen old ghost Jiaxing before. The eyes of these people revealed some uncertainty after seeing an empty sleeve of the latter. Quite a number of experts present were clearly aware of old ghost Jiaxing's strength. 5-star Do Zun. He could be considered a peak expert even in the entire continent. There are very few people who could cause him to lose an arm. Old ghost Jiaxing in the midair had also sensed the direction these gazes were looking towards. The dark and cold smile on his face was immediately withdrawn. The corner of his mouth twitched and he was just about to let out a dark cold cry when his sweeping eyes suddenly stilled. Immediately, a roar that was filled with murderous intent instantly resounded over the entire hall. Xiao Yang, you are actually still alive. The gazes within the large hall suddenly turned when everyone heard the roar of old ghost Jiaxing. Finally, they paused on the somewhat skinny young man within the hall. Old ghost, even you are still alive, how can I die before you? Xiao Yang merely smiled in the face of old ghost Jiaxing, whose face had become green in his anger. He spoke in a slow and casual manner. Bastard, today, the old me will definitely take revenge for the humiliation of losing my arm. The eyes of old ghost Jiaxing instantly turned blood red. His arm being blasted apart by Xiao Yang was a humiliation within his heart that he could not remove. Although his serious injuries were currently completely healed, his broken arm could no longer be regrown. This furious cry of old ghost Jiaxing had also brought about some sound from the inhaling of a cold breath. Numerous eyes looked towards Xiao Yang with disbelief. This arm of old ghost Jiaxing was actually broken by him? This little fellow, why would he possess such strength? Feng Qing and the rest were also a little stunned. That black-robed old man by the side had a somewhat volatile expression. His eyes contained an additional fear when he looked at Xiao Yang. He clearly understood the strength of this old ghost Jiaxing. This person was one level higher than him. Since Xiao Yang had the ability to break one of old ghost Jiaxing's hand, Xiao Yang would definitely possess the ability to turn him into a miserable state. I have underestimated this brat. However, since this old ghost Jiaxing and Xiao Yang had a grudge, the heavens are really helping us. A cold smile flashed across the eyes of the black-robed old man as he softly muttered to himself. Tang Zhen, who was beside Xiao Yang, also used a pair of stunned eyes to look at the latter. His heart was quite shaken. This young man was really not as simple as he appeared on the surface. After his furious cry sounded, old ghost Jiaxing's body shook and transformed into a black smoke, which rushed towards Xiao Yang without caring about the many strange gazes within the large hall. Vast and mighty Do Chi pressure caused a rumbling sound to appear around Xiao Yang's group, forming a large empty circular space in the process. Old ghost Jiaxing, do you not want your other arm? Xiao Yang clenched his hand when he saw that old ghost Zhai Xing pouncing over furiously. 3 clusters of heavenly flames immediately appeared in front of him as he coldly cried out. The temperature within the large hall suddenly rose when the heavenly flames appeared. That body of old ghost Zhai Xing, which was rushing forward, had also stilled in the midair with a kai sound. He had gradually recovered some of his reasoning under the high temperature. He had already tasted the might of that fire lotus once. Hence, his heart had instinctively felt a rich fear when he saw Xiao Yang summoning the heavenly flames. Moreover, he had a mission that the hall chief had personally gave him to fulfill in this trip of his to the remains. If anything went wrong, he would definitely be severely punished this time around. There are many experts around this brat. Some effort will be needed to finish him off. If I become too exhausted at that time, it is likely that I will not be able to compete with the others. There are quite a number of experts here who even I have to deal with using all my strength. Old ghost Zhai Xing's eyes flickered. A moment later, he could only swallow the explosive fury and killing intent that had rose within his heart. His eyes stared ruthlessly at Xiao Yang as he spoke in a dense manner. The old me will come and properly finish you off once the matter of the remains is over. I await you. Xiao Yang smiled coldly. Currently, he had already formally advanced to the Dozan class. The deterrence that this old ghost Zhai Xing gave him was already far from what it was before. If the current him was to use some ordinary tactics, he might indeed be unable to finish off old ghost Zhai Xing. However, it was also impossible for this old ghost Zhai Xing to completely suppress him like back then. Moreover, the Annihilation Fire Lotus at the 9-star Dozong level could blast away one arm of this old demon. Currently, Xiao Yang's strength had soared to the Dozan class. If he tossed this Fire Lotus, Xiao Yang believed that he would definitely be able to cause this old ghost to be left without even a corpse. The current Xiao Yang had many tactics to deal with this old ghost. Naturally, he need not be overly afraid of him. If it was not because it was currently not a good time and that there were other enemies around looking at him with ill intent, it was likely that Xiao Yang would launch an attack at this old ghost and completely repay the debt from back then even if this old ghost Zhai Xing did not attack. Old ghost Zhai Xing stared at Xiao Yang with a dense gaze. He waved his sleeve, turned around and rushed back. After which, he summoned the experts from the Hall of Souls and directly landed at the front of the large hall. Although the others were displeased with this overbearing manner of theirs, no one dared say much. Some of those stronger experts and large factions were unwilling to offend these people from the Hall of Soul at this moment. Hence, they could only close an eye and act as though they did not see anything. It is a little troublesome this time around. Unexpectedly, this old ghost has also come. Although losing one arm will affect the strength of that old ghost, things will also be somewhat troublesome. Tian Huizhenji mused. There is no need to be worried. If I can seriously injure this old ghost once, I will naturally be able to do it a second time. Moreover, the situation here is complicated. When the Hall of Soul fights with the other experts in a while, the experts from the Hall of Soul will definitely suffer some losses and injuries. That old ghost might even be entangled until he cannot free himself. Little fairy doctor laughed slightly and said, "Do you have a grudge with those fellows?" Qing Lin softly asked Zi Yang. "Yes, that is a great enemy of ours. They will also be your enemy in the future. Do not hold back when you fight later on. Everyone you kill is one less of them. It can make up for your mistake earlier." Zi Na patted Qing Lin's shoulders. She regarded herself as joining the group earlier than Qing Lin. Therefore, her words also appeared to be that of an older person. This caused Xiao Yang and the others to involuntarily smile at the side. Qing Lin was also a little awkward. However, she nodded seriously and said, "Be rest assured. Since they are enemies of young Master Xiao Yang, I will definitely not show any mercy." "Yes, you appear to be aware of the situation." Zi Yang nodded her small head in satisfaction. Xiao Yang helplessly glanced at these two girls. His gaze swept over the interior of the large hall before finally pausing on those stone statue puppets around. He softly said, "Do not hurry to do anything when the seal is undone. These things are all hot potato. They would be trouble if they one obtain them first." Little fairy doctor's group nodded slightly. All of them understood that whoever obtained those treasures will immediately become everyone enemies. There were many experts within the large hall. If everyone delivered a palm, it was likely that even old ghost Zhai Xing would immediately vomit blood and be defeated. This Xiao Yang not only possessed quite a strong training talent but he also possessed a shocking achievement in terms of alchemy skills. Most importantly, he might be young but he does not possess the haughtiness of the young. His future achievement will definitely be extraordinary. The Burning Flame Valley befriending him should be a correct choice. Tang Zhen nodded his head when he saw that Xiao Yang was not impulsive despite being under the lure of the treasures. The weight of Xiao Yang in his heart was raised significantly. Xiao Yang was naturally unaware that his performance would increase his significance within Tang Zhen's heart. At this moment, his eyes were focused intently on those light clusters suspended in the midair of the large hall. The light around those light clusters were becoming increasingly weak at this moment. The seal is about to disappear. Xiao Yang's expression was grave as he suddenly spoke softly. After this voice of his sounded, those 10 clusters of light suddenly trembled intensely. Immediately, a glaring intense light was erupted. Under this intense light, the scrolls within it turned into numerous rays of light that rushed out from within the light clusters. The entire hall instantly boiled when these scrolls rushed out. At the same time, the stone statue puppets around the stone table had also suddenly opened their eyes, which had been tightly shut for countless number of years. A rich killing intent spread apart at this instant. The light cluster disappeared. 10 different colored rays of light surged out from within. Through the light, it was possible for one to vaguely see the scroll objects within it. An ancient aura spread out from within these scrolls. This caused the eyes of quite a number of experts to become bloody red at this moment. Their breathing had also suddenly become heavier. A Tian class Do skill is about to be born. After the light surged, the large hall remained silent for a short blink of an eye before a sharp cry suddenly resounded over the place. Immediately, one could hear a rumbling sound appearing. Waves after waves of powerful dense Do Chi erupted within the large hall. Numerous figures became like locusts as they transformed into rays of light that rushed towards the light scrolls without due care of their lives. Faced with the blockage of many experts, those 10 rays of light appeared to possess their own intelligence. They were actually able to turn on their own while they flew, dodging those large hands that were rushing over. Human figures crossed each other from all directions in the midair. The sound of people exchanging blows continued to be emitted from the midair. Soon after, numerous figures fell after spitting out blood. Finally, they smashed heavily onto the large hall. The low and deep muffled sound caused the hearts of quite a number of people to jump. These fellows were all using lethal blows. Do not attack first. Xiao Yang's expression was also unusually grave as he watched this situation that was beyond control. He stopped Zi Yang, who was about to move, and spoke in a deep voice. Tang Zhen by the side also nodded slightly. He halted the experts from the burning flame valley and stared intently at the many experts in the midair, who were intercepting the rays of light that were shuttling all over the place. He softly said, "Young friend Xiao Yang, are you currently able to see which of the scroll is the Tian class Do skill?" "No. These 10 scrolls are all extraordinary items. They can even be said to be the highest class Do skills or Chi method that I have seen during all these years. Someone had clearly did something to these scrolls. It is not easy to catch them with one's hands." Xiao Yang shook his head. From his senses, these 10 ray of lights all contained an extremely powerful unusual energy. This was something that he had never seen. It was likely that the class of these Do skills or Chi methods were quite high. According to Xiao Yang's guess, it was likely that amongst the Do skill that he had learnt, only the God Seal skill could compare with them. Clearly, the class of these Do skills will definitely not be weaker than the God Seal skill. It is indeed worthy of being the remains left by an elite Do Sheng. Such powerful Do skills and Chi methods are things that even some powerful factions do not possess. However, they have appeared in such large numbers here. Xiao Yang's eyes swept all around the place amidst the chaos. He discovered some of the true experts, the Hall of Souls, Heaven Demon Phoenix Tribe, and some other factions did not immediately act and snatch the scrolls. Clearly, all of them wanted to wait for these people to fight until all of them were injured before acting. "Ha, young friend Xiao Yang, we will act individually later on and see if we can obtain a scroll. Since we have come to this ancient remains, we must naturally not leave empty-handed, no?" Tang Zhen looked at the human figures that continuously spat out blood and fall onto the ground as he laughed. Xiao Yang smiled. The Tian class Do skill did indeed possess a great allure towards him. He would naturally not give up if he had the opportunity to obtain it. Just as Xiao Yang had nodded, a sharp miserable scream suddenly sounded within the large hall. The eyes of everyone hurriedly looked over. Their expressions suddenly changed. They could see that those stone statue puppets around the stone chair had actually been completely awakened at this moment. Waves after waves of unusually dense murderous aura spread out. These puppets began to kill those around them once they awakened. All of these puppets had the strength of the Dozun class. The aura formed when they attacked together was extremely shocking. Within a short instant, the area within 100 meters from the stone chair was being dyed by the bright red fresh blood. A rich bloody scent spread apart, causing one's heart to be quite shocked. The puppets have been awakened. Xiao Yang knitted his brows tightly when he saw this situation. All of these puppets had the strength of the Dozun class. Currently, all of them had engaged in a slaughter. They were just like tigers leaping into a herd of goats. Other than some large factions, there were basically no one who could contend against their strength. Usually, they would only exchange 2 to 3 blows before the experts would be forcefully torn apart by these puppets. These are not ordinary puppets. There are still some life force remaining within their eyes. Xiao Yang looked at a puppet nearest to him, which was engaging in a wild slaughter. His eyes suddenly swept towards the latter's eyes. That spot did not possess an empty hole like other puppets. Instead, a kind of extremely wild killing desire was burning there. This is an ancient human puppet. It uses a special method to extract the soul of an expert from his body and seal it within the body of a puppet. In this way, the puppet that is created will not only possess some consciousness but will even be able to use Do skills. They are far more troublesome to deal with compared to ordinary puppets. Tian Huizhenjie also spoke with a solemn face. Xiao Yang involuntarily inhaled a gentle breath of air when he heard this. This elite Do Sheng really had quite vicious tactics. If one put it this way, would it not mean that he would have to at least kill a dozen over elite Do Zuns in order to create these puppets? The originally chaotic situation within the spacious large hall had become even more chaotic because of the participation of these puppets that were wildly slaughtering everyone. At this moment, those experts, who originally wanted to gain from the effort of others, could no longer simply watch idly by the side. This was because these powerful puppets that only knew how to kill had already included them in the offensive range. I will act first in a while and see if I can snatch a scroll. All of you should not act. We cannot be greedy. Otherwise, we will only end up inviting fire and burn ourselves. Xiao Yang glanced at the chaotic large hall. Everyone had lost their reasoning amidst the 10 scrolls dancing in the air. Their eyes were red as they continued to give chase. Anyone who approached a scroll first would be surrounded, almost immediately be the people behind. Do Chi spluttered out, and the person who had obtained the scroll did not even have the time to emit a miserable cry before he was directly blasted into a cluster of dripping blood. Understood. Everyone nodded when they heard the low cry of Xiao Yang. If they obtained too many scrolls, they would definitely attract countless number of red eyes. At such a moment, no one would bother about the gap in strength. The allure of the Tian class Do skill was already sufficient to turn them crazy. Bang! Everyone's reply had just sounded when over a dozen figures in front were suddenly blasted into a cluster of bloody fog. A grey figure rushed out with lightning-like speed from within the blood fog. A long spear that was dripping with fresh blood pierced explosively towards Xiao Yang's group while being accompanied by an incomparably sharp wind. Be careful. It is a human puppet. Little Fairy Doctor's expression changed slightly as she looked at the grey figure that had rushed over. Her body flashed and she appeared in front of Xiao Yang. After which, she directly rushed forward and blocked that human puppet. Vast and mighty Do Chi surged out from her body with a beautiful outline in all directions. During the time that Little Fairy Doctor had blocked this human puppet, Xiao Yang had taken the opportunity to quickly weigh the latter. Now that he was a short distance away, he was finally able to see that the surface of these puppets appeared to be covered by a layer of greyish-white mysterious cloth. This cloth was flickering with an unusually luster. On top of being soft, it also possessed quite a powerful defensive strength. Even a full-force attack by an elite Do Zone would not be able to tear this kind of mysterious cloth. Try and see if you can control these puppets. Tian Huizhenjie spoke in a deep voice. Xiao Yang swiftly nodded upon hearing this. While the human puppet was being pestered by Little Fairy Doctor, a spiritual strength swiftly surged out from between Xiao Yang's brows. After which, it entered the puppet's body with lightning-like speed. However, Xiao Yang was not as lucky as the last time. He could sense an incomparably powerful seal located at the spot in the puppet where the seal was planted. This kind of seal was definitely personally left behind by that elite Do Sheng. Therefore, it had enabled these human puppets to still carry out the order he had placed meticulously even after countless number of years. I am unable to control them. The seal is too strong. The current me is unable to remove it. Xiao Yang withdrew his spiritual strength and shook his head. He felt a little regretful. If he was able to subdue these human puppets, there would no longer be anyone within this large hall who had the qualification to fight against him. Unfortunately, Tian Huizhenjie and the rest were a little disappointed, but they came to an understanding after thinking about it. These human puppets were the last defense of the elite Do Sheng. It would be too incredulous if they were so easily controlled. We should also prepare to act. I will be responsible to snatch the scroll. All of you should help me block the other experts. Xiao Yang glanced at Little Fairy Doctor's situation. That human puppet was quite troublesome. It was clearly very difficult to finish it off within a short period of time. Fortunately, Little Fairy Doctor was not in any danger. Hence, Xiao Yang had placed his attention towards the midair once again. At this moment, Fengqing the Ice River Valley and the other factions were unable to wait any longer. All of them had joined in the snatching of the scrolls. Feng Huizhenjie and the rest nodded upon hearing this. The Do Chi within their bodies were circulated rapidly. They were aware that it was not an easy task to successfully obtain the scrolls in this chaotic situation. Xiao Yang's eyes swept over the midair before pausing on a red ray of light. The ray of light already had quite a number of blood traces over it. Based on Xiao Yang's guess, it was likely that over 10 experts had already died because of it. That will be the target. Xiao Yang muttered to himself in his heart. This scroll was completely bright red and there was a wild and violent aura spreading from it. It was likely that it was related to the fire affinity and was most suitable for Xiao Yang. Moreover, compared with the other scrolls, there were fewer experts after it. The level of difficulty in snatching it would correspondingly be reduced. Xiao Yang's eyes shifted along with the flashing bright red ray of light. A moment later, this ray of light had finally appeared in the area around Xiao Yang's group after being blocked by many experts. Do it! A sharp cry was suddenly emitted from Xiao Yang's mouth when that ray of light entered the area around Xiao Yang's group. Xiao Yang's cry had just sounded when a purple-brown flame immediately surged out from his body. His feet stomped on the ground and the floor immediately cracked into powder. His body was just like an enormous fire dragon that forcefully charged towards the crowd that was intercepting the bright red scroll in the most brutal fashion. Xiao Yang's sudden intervention had also attracted the notice of many people. Immediately, the expressions of quite a number of people changed slightly. A chilling aura flickered in their eyes. They waved their sleeves. Fierce doqi pillars ruthlessly rushed towards Xiao Yang while being accompanied by a rushing wind sound. Given the strength of these people, they would usually not dare to attack Xiao Yang. However, at this moment, everyone had become crazy under the allure of the Tian class Do skill. No one would bother about the other person's status or strength. Hence, they did not hesitate when attacking. Xiao Yang let out a cold snort as he looked at the dozen over doqi pillars that had rushed over. He flicked his finger and 5 purple-brown fire pillars hurriedly shot out from the surface of his body. After which, it collided heavily with the few pillars and destroyed all of them easily. The remaining fire pillars violently exploded on their bodies amidst the shocked eyes of those few who had attacked. The frightening temperature caused them to turn into a couple of fireballs. Xiao Yang's merciless attack caused some of the experts, who were preparing to attack, to have a change in their expressions. They woke up a little. Immediately, they could only clench their teeth and gradually suppress the attack brewing within their palms. With the help of the temporarily deterrence created from this forcefully attack, the fire dragon that Xiao Yang had transformed into brutally charged directly into the crowd. His body flashed and he rushed towards the bright red scroll. Xiao Yang's action also caused the only elite Dozun present in this circle to have a sunken expression. He had been chasing after this bright red scroll since the beginning. Being the strongest in this group, the chance of him successfully obtaining it was quite high. Currently, this sudden intervention of Xiao Yang had also stirred a dense killing desire within his heart. His eyes flickered as he clenched his hand. An enormous axe appeared in it. A low and deep cry was being emitted from this expert, whose strength was also around that of a 1-star Dozun. Immediately, deep yellow do qi surged out of his body in all directions. The muscles on his body also wiggled strangely at this moment. A terrifying strength gathered with a lightning-like speed. All of you should get lost for this venerable self. This Dozun had a dark and dense expression. His body flashed and he appeared above Xiao Yang's hand. That enormous axe in his hand carried a frightening strength that could cut through the heavens and earth as it tore through the air and viciously hacked towards Xiao Yang's head. Get lost. You think you are worthy? The frightening energy that had suddenly covered 100 feet radius around Xiao Yang had naturally attracted his notice. A cold smile appeared on his face. He clenched his fist and the heavy Shen ruler appeared. Purple-brown flame rushed out with lightning-like speed and transformed into a meandering fire dragon on the ruler's body. Get lost. A sharp cry was emitted from Xiao Yang's mouth. That heavy ruler carried a hot and sharp wind as it collided heavily with that 1-star Dozun's mountain opening axe in the fiercest manner. The ruler and axe collided. An earth-shaking metallic sound immediately exploded. Immediately, a powerful wind ripple swept out from the point of collision. Those experts nearby immediately felt their chest tightened. Their bodies involuntarily flew backwards. This earth-shaking collision also caused the expression of that 1-star Dozun to change. A mouthful of fresh red blood directly shot out. A shocked expression surged onto their faces. Xiao Yang's strength was at the very most comparable to him. Moreover, he specialized in head-on strength collision. Unexpectedly, this strength was actually unable to gain any advantage in Xiao Yang's hands. Fresh blood splattered. The aura of that 1-star Dozun instantly became weary. At this moment, he also understood that he had already lost the qualification to compete with Xiao Yang for the scroll. Immediately, he could only clench his teeth unwillingly and pull back. Once he was injured in this chaotic moment, quite a number of people who take advantage and attacked. He had seen quite a number of experts with similar strength as him being attacked by 100 over people earlier. In the end, these elite Dozuns, who usually stood high above, could only flee miserably. Xiao Yang flipped his hand after his ruler directly forced the 1-star Dozun back. He once again kept this heavy Shen ruler into his storage ring. He clenched his hand slightly and felt a faint numb feeling. His heart involuntarily felt a little surprised at the strength of this 1-star Dozun. He had consumed many natural treasures during these years. Hence, it had resulted in his physical body becoming unusually strong. Although he could not be compared to Zi Yang, it was a little difficult to find an expert of the same level who possessed a strength similar to his. Xiao Yang's eyes swiftly turned towards the location of the bright red scroll after having forced back this tiger that had blocked his path. This thing was extremely agile. It still fled in an extremely happy manner despite the combined effort of so many experts. There was not a single person who could touch it even until now. Instead, some people, who were too close to it, ended up being seriously injured by the combined effort of the other experts. Xiao Yang's foot suddenly stomped on the empty air when he saw this scene. He once again turned into a purple-brown fire dragon that rushed towards the scroll. Those people blocking him along the way were directly sent flying by him. Under this brutal act of his, he had already charged into the closest spot to the scroll within the blink of an eye. Brat, you are seeking death. Those surrounding experts with blood-red eyes immediately emitted a furious cry in Yuzhen when they saw Xiao Yang charge into a 20 feet distance from the bright red scroll. Powerful Do Qi erupted. Immediately, they blasted towards Xiao Yang from all directions. The momentum from the combined attack by nearly 100 experts was extremely spectacular. With such a large-scale Do Qi smashing over, even Xiao Yang's expression ended up changing slightly. However, he did not turn his body immediately. He once again took a step forward. His large hand gently grabbed towards the bright red scroll that was flying around. Do Qi from all over the place arrived in an instant. Just when these attacks were about to land on Xiao Yang's body, the space around the latter fluctuated slightly. Tian Huozunja, Zi Yang, Qing Lin and the rest swiftly appeared. With their combined effort, a think energy shield was immediately formed. Bang! An endless amount of Do Qi violently smashed onto the light shield, causing the latter to continuously erupt into waves of ripples. However, it ultimately managed to endure and did not burst apart. Under the combined effort of the few of them, they had forcefully endured the joint attack by many experts. Taking the opportunity of their blocking, Xiao Yang's large hand finally landed on the bright red scroll. However, just when Xiao Yang's hand had just touched the scroll emitted a hissing sound and shot some distance forward like a fish before he could clench his hand. It had once again escaped from the area that Xiao Yang controlled. Xiao Yang's face became cold when he saw this. His hand curled into a claw and violently grabbed at the bright red scroll, which had shot out. With this grab, the space itself rippled. The space around the scroll immediately became depressed. It formed a narrow spatial cage that trapped the scroll within it. Come over. A cold cry was emitted from Xiao Yang's mouth. The suction force from his palm soared. A frightening strength directly pulled the bright red scroll into the depressed space. After which, the latter could only turn into a bright red light that flashed towards Xiao Yang's palm. Xiao Yang's figure moved. His hand was once again clenched. Half of the bright red scroll had finally landed in his hand. However, he had just used some strength when his expression changed abruptly. This was because a shriveled large hand grabbed tightly on the other side of the scroll. Aren't you a little too naive in thinking of enjoying the treasure alone? Xiao Yang raised his eyes rapidly when he heard this somewhat familiar cold laughter. He discovered that the one who had interfered was actually the chief of the profound Shen sect, Chen Tiannan. Chen Tiannan revealed a dark and cold smile when he saw Xiao Yang looking over. His fight hand swiftly tightened and he violently threw a punch towards Xiao Yang's head without any fancy action. Looking at his stance, it was obvious that he was planning on blasting apart Xiao Yang's head with a punch. You are seeking death. A chilling glint flashed across Xiao Yang's eyes when he saw this ruthless tactic of Chen Tiannan. A golden light immediately appeared in front of him in a ghost-like manner. Chen Tiannan's fist landed heavily on the latter's body while being accompanied by a clear metallic sound. Puppet. Chen Tiannan's expression changed a little as he looked at the dark golden-colored sky demon puppet that had appeared in front of him. He hurriedly withdrew his punch. However, the sky demon puppet that followed closely behind also violently threw its frightening metallic fist towards his head. Bastard. Chen Tiannan had a drastic change in expression when he sensed the frightening strength on the fist of the sky demon puppet. He could only let out a furious curse. Immediately, he unwillingly released the scroll that he had grabbed onto tightly. His body pulled back explosively. Xiao Yang grabbed at the scroll violently after Chen Tiannan released it. Purple-brown flame surged out from his palm and firmly pressed onto the struggling scroll. A moment later, that bright red scroll's resistance finally weakened gradually. Xiao Yang heavily sighed in relief when the scroll's symptom had completely disappeared. It was swiftly kept into his storage ring in front of the countless number of red eyes. At the same time, a vast and mighty aura surged out from his body without any restraint. Purple-brown flame lingered around his body. This power caused the blood-red eyes of the surrounding experts to gradually become calm. A moment later, he glanced at Tian Huozunja a short distance away. Finally, he could only turn his body around unwillingly and leave. He began to maximize the time left and snatch another scroll. Xiao Yang's expression relaxed a little when he saw these ravenous wolves-like fellows withdrawing after being deterred. He might not be afraid of the individual strength of these people. However, if 100 over of them were to charge together, even he would feel somewhat troublesome. Old bastard, since you have already attacked, there is no need for you to return. Xiao Yang's expression suddenly became densely cold after having kept the scroll. His eyes turned towards Chen Tiannan, who appeared somewhat miserable under the attack of the sky demon puppet. A killing intent surged within his eyes. Xiao Yang already had a killing intent towards Chen Tiannan within his heart ever since the latter first led a large group of people to the pill tower to capture him. However, he was merely a 9-star dozong back then. It was quite difficult to kill this old fellow. Hence, he did not act. Now that they have met again, Xiao Yang had yet to act when this old fellow had attacked first. Moreover, looking at the vicious stance of the latter, it was clear that he really wanted to take Xiao Yang's life. Xiao Yang would naturally not show mercy to this kind of enemy, who possessed a desire to kill him. Although the profound Shen sect might not be very strong, the profound Sky sect behind them caused people to be a little afraid. No one could guarantee that this old fellow would find some great trouble for Xiao Yang due to his grudge against the latter. It was not Xiao Yang's character to leave a potential danger alone. Moreover, the situation in this place was currently chaotic. It was likely that news would not really spread if he killed this old fellow here. These thoughts flashed across Xiao Yang's heart. He looked at Chen Tiannan, who appeared quite miserable under the attack of the sky demon puppet. His face also became increasingly icy. Chen Tiannan's strength was around that of a 2-star dozun. On the other hand, with the fighting strength of the sky demon puppet, it would not be at a disadvantage even when facing an expert at the peak of the 3-star dozun class. Hence, it was naturally able to firmly suppress the former in their fight. Bang! Chen Tiannan violently collided head-on with the sky demon puppet in the midair. The frightening strength that was transmitted through his arm immediately caused him to take over a dozen staggering steps in the midair. Bloody chi rose within his body. A pale white expression surfaced on his face. The sky demon puppet did not feel any pain, it was like a killing machine when it fought. As long as Xiao Yang did not ask it to step, it would never stop. Chen Tiannan would suffer quite a great disadvantage when they fight. After having fallen into a disadvantage despite the long fight, Chen Tiannan already had the intention to withdraw within his heart. The reason he dared to snatch the scroll from Xiao Yang was because Xiao Yang was facing enemies from all directions. Not only did the experts from the Hall of Soul had an enmity with him, but even the gazes that the Heaven Demon Phoenix's group used to look at him were unfriendly. At this moment, Chen Tiannan would naturally wish to add insult to injury, given his character. However, he did not expect that the current Xiao Yang was actually completely different from the one at the Pill Tower back then. That endless number of tactics had caused his heart to feel a little afraid. Looks like I can only withdraw first. Once the chaos of this place end, the Hall of Soul and the rest will definitely find trouble with this brat. At that time, I will secretly attack and kill this brat. At the same time, I will also snatch the scroll back. Chen Tiannan finally decided to cease fighting while this thought flashed across his heart. He raised his head and looked at the sky demon puppet, which had rushed over once again. His body hurriedly pulled back, intending to withdraw into the chaotic battleground. Where are you going? However, Chen Tiannan had just stepped back when an icy cold voice suddenly sounded from behind him. At the same instant, an extremely frightening hot wind also arrived. This sudden attack had also caused Chen Tiannan's expression to change. He swiftly turned around instinctively as his palms, which were covered in do qi, were hurriedly thrown forward. Bang! The fierce wind suddenly spread apart at this moment. Chen Tiannan, who hurriedly exchanged blows with his opponent, immediately felt a repression in his heart. His body was forcefully shaken until it withdrew for a couple of dozen meters. He hurriedly raised his head, only to see a skinny figure standing at the spot where he had fell back from earlier. Xiao Yang. Chen Tiannan immediately gritted his teeth and cried when he saw that figure. Xiao Yang was expressionless. Purple-brown flames surrounded his body, causing him to appear like a fire god. His feet were stepping on the empty air as he walked over towards Chen Tiannan. You wish to kill me? Chen Tiannan involuntarily narrowed his eyes and coldly said when he saw this manner of Xiao Yang. The corner of Xiao Yang's mouth was lifted into a dense arc. Vast and mighty do qi swiftly gathered in his palm. With just this 1-star dozun strength of yours? Chen Tiannan laughed furiously. He was just about to take the initiative to attack when an unusually sharp wind was suddenly transmitted from behind him. This caused his expression to change. He turned around and met it. Both of his palms danced and his powerful do qi formed an impenetrable energy web in front of him. Bang bang! The sky demon puppet waved its arm. Each time it was swung, it would bring about an ear-piercing sharp wind-splitting sound. Space collapsed and numerous dark black crack lines appeared. Boom! Chen Tiannan quietly cried out bitterly when faced with this fierce attack by the sky demon puppet. His body continued to pull back. The strength of the Sky Demon puppet had basically suppressed him until he only had the ability to defend. If this continues, I will sooner or later be seriously injured in the hands of this puppet. Looks like I cannot be entangled any longer. Bastard brat. The old me will remember this debt. Sooner or later, the time will come for you to repay it. Chen Tian-nan viciously cried out within his heart. His palm wind suddenly strengthened as he forcefully pushed aside the attack by the Sky Demon puppet. His toes pressed on the ground and his body flew backwards. Chen Tian-nan's heart had just sighed in relief as his body stood in the midair when a dangerous feeling suddenly spread out from deep within his heart. The goosebumps all over his body stood up at this moment. Sky-burying seal. A slight cold cry that carried some cold wind quietly resounded beside Chen Tian-nan's ear while Chen Tian-nan's heart was permeated with a sense of danger. This is bad. Chen Tian-nan's expression instantly became pale when he sensed the activity behind him. Xiao Yang's speed was so quick that it had exceeded his expectations. Bang! Do Qi hurriedly surged within Chen Tian-nan's body as he reacted to the situation. Before he could completely form a defense behind him, a palm-size purple-brown handprint gently landed on his back. A frightening force surged out like floodwaters. A sleek redness immediately surged up Chen Tian-nan's pale white face after he forcefully received this heavy blow. A mouthful of fresh blood was involuntarily spat out. His body also staggered and withdrew, knocking against a couple of experts as he did so. That force had also shaken these unlucky fellows until they vomited a couple mouthfuls of blood. Chen Tian-nan's body transformed into an arc that flew towards the distant. His face was covered with blood as he turned around with much difficulty. His eyes were vicious as he looked at the increasingly distant Xiao Yang. That vicious poisonous feeling caused one to have goosebumps. Little bastard, if I do not avenge this, I, Chen Tian-nan, will have been a sect leader in vain. In the future, I will definitely get you to regret your action today. Chen Tian-nan roared viciously within his heart. He was originally the type who would take revenge for any grudge. Xiao Yang had nearly killed him on the spot. This vengeance was sufficient to allow him to remember it for a lifetime. Bang! Numerous vicious thoughts flashed across Chen Tian-nan's heart. His body also landed heavily on the ground, rubbing and forming a deep gully, after which, he violently collided onto the hard pillar of the large hall. Immediately, he spat out another mouthful of fresh blood. After struggling shakily onto his feet, Chen Tian-nan's eyes penetrated through the crowd and looked at the indifferent-looking Xiao Yang in the distance with vicious eyes. After which, he turned around and left. Chen Tian-nan had just turned around when his body suddenly became stiff. A dark golden fist penetrated through his chest. Fresh blood adhered onto the dark golden arm and continued to drip downwards. Those eyes of Chen Tian-nan stared firmly at the hollow face. Only then was he aware that Xiao Yang had truly felt a murderous intent towards him. The latter would not give him any chance to take revenge. What a vicious tactic. Blood seeped out from within Chen Tian-nan's mouth. His life force also swiftly disappeared from within his body. Immediately, his stiff body collapsed slowly. Finally, it fell onto the ground. This chief of the profound Xian sect, Chen Tian-nan, who had reached the strength of a 2-star Dozun, had fell in the combined attack of Xiao Yang and the Sky Demon puppet in this manner. You can only blame yourself for everything. The chillness on Xiao Yang's face was gradually withdrawn when he saw Chen Tian-nan collapsing slowly. He originally had no enmity with Chen Tian-nan. However, the latter insisted on thinking that Chen Xian had died in his hands and had tried to kill him with all sorts of methods. Chen Tian-nan deserved this ending of his today. Xiao Yang kept the Sky Demon puppet into his storage ring after having like Chen Tian-nan with lightning-like speed. Tian Huazunja, Little Fairy Doctor and the others also flashed over. Finally, the few of them once again gathered and cautiously watched the chaos within the large hall. What happened to that human puppet? Are you all right? Xiao Yang glanced at Little Fairy Doctor and asked. I'm fine. I have lured the human puppet to another place. These things might possess the desire to kill but they do not possess any intelligence. Little Fairy Doctor smiled sweetly as she replied. Xiao Yang nodded slightly. His eyes swept over the place. The Heaven Demon Phoenix Tribe and Wind Lightning Pavilion has each obtained a scroll. The Ice River Valley and the Burning Flame Valley has also gained something. Additionally, another 2 scrolls has landed into the hands of 2 experts, who are quite strong. Tian Huazunja softly spoke from the side. Xiao Yang was startled when he heard this. After which, he nodded once again. These factions had come prepared. Moreover, there were also some truly experts amongst those who had come alone. It was not too surprising for them to obtain the scrolls. What should we do now? There are only 3 scrolls remaining, which are being snatched by people. An unknown number of people has already died because of those 3 scrolls. Do we need to snatch another one? Little Fairy Doctor asked. If we snatch more of it, it will cause those who has yet to obtain any treasure to lose their sense of reasoning. Xiao Yang shook his head. He knitted his brows slightly and replied, moreover, the feeling that these 10 scrolls give me does not appear like a Tian class Do technique. You mean, these 10 scrolls are all fake? Little Fairy Doctor and the rest asked in shock. These scrolls are indeed Do techniques or Qi methods which are quite strong. However, they are likely not the Tian class Do technique. All of us are likely fooled. Xiao Yang narrowed his eyes and muttered. Little fairy doctor and the others also knitted their brows tightly when they heard these words. They rotated their eyes and suddenly said, "Those fellows from the Hall of Soul, what are they planning to do?" Xiao Yang was startled. His eyes followed the sight of little fairy doctor, only to see old ghost Jai Xing and a couple of Hall of Soul expert was actually adopting an encircling formation as they slowly walked towards the Do Sheng skeleton at the middle of the large hall. Their target is the Do Sheng skeleton? Tian Huazunja commented in a deep voice. Should we intervene and stop these fellows? Ziyang spoke with a desire to see some action. Xiao Yang's eyes were staring intently at the skeleton that was seated on the stone chair. His eyes suddenly shrunk a moment later. An instant earlier, he had seen the finger of that skeleton trembling slightly. This Do Sheng skeleton is alive. A shock suddenly spread out from Xiao Yang's heart at this moment. This video will end here.